In the desert oasis where stories ignite, Skip's little bar, a beacon of light. From the Coachella Valley stars to cool everyday Joes, join Patrick and Randy, let the stories flow. At Big Conversations Little Bar, the magic spreads near and far. Backed by the McCallum Theater's grace, celebrate the voices that shape this place.
Thank you very much, Howard. We are back here at the corner booth at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California for another edition of Big Conversations Little Bar. My name is Patrick Evans, and I'm here with my good friend, sidekick, trusted co-host, spiritual and financial advisor, Randy Florence. How are you, Randy?
I feel bad for you.
What?
I mean, if I'm your advisor on all those things, I just feel bad for you.
After I spent time with you and your wife, I stopped taking marital advice from you, but everything else is... No, I'm kidding about that. You guys are one of the most solid couples I've...
Almost 44 years.
I know. That's remarkable. John McMillan, our producer, and we want to give a big shout-out to the McCallum Theater, our presenting sponsor. They make it possible every week for us to bring in high-powered, big-time Hollywood guests like the one we have today.
Yes.
Who would that be?
The voice of Stan Zimmerman, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, that's
Stan,
who it is.
Thank you.
Welcome, Stan. Now that you know you're on the show.
Although I feel like, because, I mean, I don't see you except when you're in Palm Springs, but you seem to be here a bit.
A lot more, I know.
I feel like you're a staple of the community.
I'm slowly moving clothes, things.
I'm always surprised when I see you traveling somewhere else because I just assume you're always in Palm Springs.
I wish I was. No, I'm trying to find ways to be here more and longer. I was lucky enough to be here last year to direct The New Century, a Paul Rudnick play with the Bent Theater Company, and I did that purposely. I kind of created that in my mind. I was like, I'm going to go to Palm Springs for like 2 months and see, is it a place that I want to move to? And then magically the job appeared, and I was down here, and it rained most of the time.
Well, that's
but I
unusual.
loved it anyway.
That's really unusual.
And the actress said they couldn't get to rehearsal, or maybe they were just making it up. I'm like, it's not that much rain, but I guess certain
We all
roads.
have bald tires, so we don't hit the roads.
There's so many jokes I could say off of that one, but we'll just glide right by that.
No, feel free.
But the community down here was so wonderful, and there's such a burgeoning artistic community, and then got to work with this wonderful actor here in a play we did last September.
Right before you go.
Right before I go,
I think
which came about because of you.
Really?
Take credit for that.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
He wasn't going to write the play.
Let's start there.
Okay, let's go back.
Because and I had the chance to moderate the discussion afterwards.
After we twisted your arm to do it. Yeah.
Well, I did want to support, of course, you and Randy, because that was really first time on stage for you, Randy. You've been taking acting. People who listen to the podcast know.
They know.
And one of our great guests, Terry Ray, has been kind of your mentor in
a lot of ways.
Yes, indeed.
He's been trying to turn me for a year.
He says.
And how's that working out?
He says he's really close.
Get them to spend another tequila.
He says you're right there.
Yeah. 3 weeks. Last time I talked to him, it was 3 weeks away.
Oh, he said it's 3 weeks ago.
Well, 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't ask any more questions. I was like, okay, I believe that. No, but tell people about because this play was very personal to you.
But I came on your show to talk about something else, something more upbeat. Must have been about Golden Girls?
Yeah, you came on to talk about
my book? I
yes,
don't know.
But
my
you
book.
came on to talk about the book, and we're going to talk about the book.
Yes.
But then we were discussing your
I don't know
other
why I
projects.
brought it up, but I brought up my suicide awareness play right before I go. And Patricia had seen me on your show, which I guess people watch it, right? You don't just film it, but actually there are viewers. Patricia does, okay.
He is possibly the most popular person in the desert.
Oh, I know. Everywhere I go, people are very excited that I know you. And
because I dropped your name, so
yeah, you can drop it. No one's picking that up. But I don't know why I did, but I think there's a reason for everything. And then she contacted me. I was actually in a Uber from the airport in France. For the past 2 years, I've been mentoring writers at a 14th century castle in France. I'm going to do it this September.
That's a good gig.
It's a horrible gig. You have to drink a lot of wine every day.
Oh, no.
And make eat beautifully prepared food for you in this castle, owned by the guy that was the manager of the police.
Really?
His brother was in the police.
Copeland?
No.
It's not Sting.
It's not
It's
Sting.
the other guy. It's not Sting.
Stuart Copeland, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe that's who it is. Anyway, so she texts me and she says, I saw you talk about your suicide awareness play on your show, and would I let her do it in Palm Springs? And I said, only if I can be in it. So I'm the narrator in the play. And I said, wait for me to come back to the States. And we did a Suicide Prevention Week, which was very intense.
It was.
And
Yeah.
the support from this community, it's obviously a very important issue, was so strong. And the feeling in that room, it was intense. I just felt my emotions were high anyway. And the hardest thing, I don't know about for you, I mean, you had your wife to go home and talk to after.
Yeah.
I went back to L.A. I'm driving in the car going, what just happened?
Trying to come down from all
Nobody
that.
to bounce
Yeah.
that
I
off
know,
of.
and I'm like, can I call someone? Like, did that happen? And we were talking earlier. There was a gentleman who had kept a story about suicide he never told his wife about his connection to the subject.
Bruce Fessier.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bruce has been a guest, and he worked with the paper for many, many years. I guess someone had called in.
Because back then they didn't have hotlines.
Right, there was no
So
suicide
you would
hotline.
call a newspaper where he was working, and he said he stayed on the phone with someone for a long time, but that he never knew if that person was alive or not.
Wow.
And he shared that. So the play is only an hour play, and it's using real suicide notes like Kurt Cobain and war veterans and Virginia Woolf and kids that were bullied and LGBTQ kids.
It's incredibly powerful, and we've already discussed it. Randy asked me first. He said, I'm doing this play, and we need a moderator for a discussion. I said, I would be happy. It's your first time on stage. Please. Now tell me about the play. And then he told me about the play. I'm like, oh, no. What am I getting myself into? Because I'm kind of a happy-go-lucky guy.
Yes, you are.
It is not a subject that...
So am I.
I know you are, yeah.
I'm totally depressed.
No, you're not.
But I
Oh,
really
yeah.
didn't know what to expect. But it was incredibly powerful, the text that you used to create the dialogue in that play. And, I mean, it was really eye-opening. And it made for a very good... it was easy to be a moderator in that discussion because you really opened up people's eyes to the subject. And there was a lot to be said.
Well, I came at it from my perspective of being a comedy writer, writing shows like Golden Girls and Roseanne and Gilmore Girls, and not knowing how to deal with all of that. So I think when I talk about my process of figuring it out and wanting to get to my friend's suicide note, thinking that would answer the questions why, the audience can kind of ride that with me. So, and I'm so open in the play that when we're done and we have the talk back, people just end up opening up and sharing, like your friend did so beautifully. And his wife said after, he never told me that story all these years. And that's the power of theater.
Q&A was very powerful.
Yes.
You could feel it in the room. Nobody left. Everybody wanted to hear what was going to be discussed.
And that was, it's Patricia Delruth West, right?
Yes.
She did a great job of putting on the production, but
And she has a personal connection to the subject.
Yeah.
lost her son.
Yes.
Yes.
But Randy did a fantastic job. I know
Thank you.
you had to try on some different accents,
Yes.
voices for that.
Which is not
How do you like that?
one of my strengths.
No, you're not the Meryl Streep of the desert?
I sounded like Meryl Streep that day, but I
Yes.
wasn't supposed to. No, it was, well, I told this story that after an audition last year, I got a call back. And I went into the callback, and the first thing Jason Real said to me, can you do a Southern accent? And I went, no. Well,
At least you know your limits.
yeah, but I'm a new actor. I realize that that's the last time I should ever say no.
Never say no.
You know,
It's yes
Unless they
and.
ask me to take my clothes
Yes.
off or something, you know. Well, no.
Well, if you want to work in the desert. No.
That's right.
No, we can't talk like that. Come
Look,
on.
if you're going to work here, you got to have to go blue
Yes.
on occasion. It's just going to happen.
I always wondered where that expression came from. Why blue? Because people don't know what that is. You know, Red Fox,
Right.
LaWanda
Right.
Page, they used to make records in the basement, and they were called blue records. They were do routines that they couldn't do, I guess, in a lot of clubs. So why blue?
I don't know, because it turned the air blue with the
There
curse
you go.
words.
Maybe the police came.
Or maybe
There you
Oh,
go.
that
There's,
might
I
be
don't
it.
know.
There we
Now
go.
I'm just making that's the tequila talking. Yeah.
Tell people.
Tell the people.
tell
you
the
mean
people.
the one person listening.
We're still
person.
Oh my God!
Tell the
We've got a
person.
person listening.
about when you wrote the play, because there's the kind of the nexus of why you wrote the play, because you lost a friend to suicide.
I did about 15 years ago now. A very close friend, and I didn't know how to process it. And then one of his best friends and I, we kind of split up responsibilities. And for some reason, she was going to throw the celebration of life party, and I said I would take on, if anybody had any questions about anything of it, they could call me, not realizing that with every call I would have to relive what happened. And I just answered questions that people asked, because people didn't know if it was cancer or AIDS or how he died. I didn't volunteer anything, I didn't post anything, and then one of his best friends called me very upset. He is a actor who's starred in TV shows, and he was mad that I was telling people because he felt my friend Kevin was a very private person. And I felt so bad, and I realized there's so much shame around this topic, and that's what propelled me to create this play, to hopefully demystify it and combat the shame. And I believe the more we talk about it, then people are not writing notes.
And one of the
that's my
first things
mission.
you talked about that you did was you started Googling.
I Googled
find out more
suicide
about the
notes.
topic.
I didn't know anything. I
Yeah.
didn't know statistics, how prevalent it was. And then all these things came up. But it was interesting. I was just doing it in Virginia. And one of the notes is Kurt Cobain's note. And in the play, I dramatized it. Courtney Love, his wife, recorded his suicide note and played it at Flag Pavilion Park in Seattle, where all of his fans had gathered. I'm doing the play in Virginia, January, and a friend of mine came. She lives in LA in the business, and she's just sitting in the front row, and all of a sudden I realized she managed Courtney Love.
Oh,
And I'm saying, stay in the play, Stan. Stay in the play. But oh my God,
that's a full
this
circle
letter is
moment.
coming up.
Yeah.
She tells me after that that first of all, after he died, Courtney started grabbing his clothes and throwing it over the fence to fans that had gathered outside their house. And they're like, no, you can't do that. You're encouraging more people to come.
Right.
She wanted to go down to the park and read the note live. And they're like, well, we don't think that's such a good idea. And that's how the recording happened. And then I learned from her, which I don't think anyone else knows, she didn't read the note verbatim. She would comment occasionally. So I have found little comments that she just was like, threw in as she was reading it.
Ad-libbing into these.
Yeah.
And that has become the lore of his note. So there's the written note, and then there's what she recorded. So it adds a whole other texture to it.
It does.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
Well,
Can we go all the way
back.
Yeah.
Okay. To where?
When you were a little
Inception?
kid.
Yes.
Born and raised.
Okay.
I mean, how did you get to be the Stan Zimmerman of today?
Today. I grew up in a Jewish suburb of Detroit, 10 Mile, if anybody knows the Eminem
Yeah.
movie,
Yep.
8 Mile. It's a little bit north, a
It's
little bit
2 more miles past that.
2 miles whiter. That's what I like to think of it. But I kept wanting to go downtown. I kept saying to my parents, we went down. We were the very few of my school group. My father had season tickets to the Detroit Pistons, which I got very emotionally involved in those games.
Really?
We had really good seats, but back, you two are probably too young, but it was like...
Now, those were the bad boys, right?
Yeah, it was like Dave Bing and DeBuscher and then Bob Lanier. They were like stars,
Yeah.
but we had such good seats, I could feel the thumping of the floor. And then the back and forth of who's winning and losing, it was too much for a young child, a very sensitive child, to handle. I just felt like I was going to have a heart attack. I just got so involved in it of like, no, we had to win. And then my mother took us down to the Detroit has a beautiful art institute, like supposedly one of the best in the United States. So we were always going downtown, and I talk about this in the play, but my second grade teacher called my mother and said he's very artistic and creating these plays. I think he should go to a theater school. And she recommended Cranbrook Theater School. And luckily they took me, even though I was under their age limit. I was 7.5. They took 8 and above. And the plays were so horrible that I started rewriting the plays, adding jokes, funny costume bits, anything to get a laugh. And like I say in the play, the minute I heard that laughter, it like sent a jolt up my spine. And I knew like I had to write sitcoms and comedies. And I was obsessed with television. I would just memorize the TV guide, like all of the different shows. And I became a human TiVo for my parents and brother and sister. So I would know what shows they would like. My brother was a Star Trek freak. So I'd be like, Star Trek.
I love him already.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
And any shows in that genre, I knew like, no, you got to come watch this. This is at 9 o'clock. And then my sister, you like this kind of thing. You'd be here at 7:30. So I kind of scheduled their time, television viewing habits. And I created my own network in my bedroom, a fourth network. That's insane, right? Because I wasn't out playing sports, so I decided to create my own network. And I scheduled 7 days a week opposite. Then it was 3 networks. That's a pretty wild thing to do.
So you had counter programming to all of the.
Of course I did. So like there was a show, remember Love American Style?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there was one episode called Love and the Good Old Days. And it starred Ron Howard, Harold Gould, about a boy in the 50s. And I had just seen American Graffiti. And I'm like, this would make a really good half-hour show on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. 6 months later, I turn on the TV and Happy Days
There
is
it
on.
is.
I go running downstairs screaming at my mother, you went through my drawers, you showed somebody at ABC. And she's like, what are you talking about? Because nobody knew I was doing this up there.
They didn't know you were running the network.
They
up
didn't
there.
know that. Yeah, yes. And I got to tell Gary Marshall that story, actually.
Wow.
Oh, how
before
cool.
he passed, yes.
What did you put up against Star Trek? I'm just curious.
Well, Star Trek wasn't on at that point. But I was obsessed with Lily Tomlin, and she would have these comedy specials maybe every year or two. And I felt we needed to see her weekly, so I gave her her own variety show, and I got to tell her that too.
That's an excellent call.
I think so too. Yes.
And how old were you at that point?
Probably like 12, 13, 14.
Wow.
I know that's pretty
incredible.
insane. Yeah.
That's really wild. Now, something tells me I remember this conversation, but it may not have been with you. You wanted to be an actor at one point, correct?
Well, I started acting
Yeah.
at 7, yeah. So I thought that was my path. I auditioned for NYU when I got in. I went to school at 17 and studied with NYU Circle in the Square. You do your undergrad with different studios like Strasberg or Stella Adler or Circle in the Square. And I got in there. And I was so nervous at auditions. I don't know how you feel about auditions. Are you scared?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're petrifying, right?
Yes.
I was so nervous that my face would literally shake. And I had this big audition. I got called in for a CBS sitcom about Washington Pages. I guess I was the Jewish nerdy kid of that one, typecasting. And I went into the audition, but I was like my cheeks were shaking, and I thought they were going to probably call a medic or something because there was something physically wrong with me.
Yes.
I was having a stroke at 20. And then I realized maybe this job isn't for me. Like if I can't be comfortable in my own skin, I shouldn't do it.
But it wasn't really the acting part of it.
was
It was the
auditioning,
audition part
yeah.
of it
that
Yeah.
threw me. Because, well, as I say now, I teach acting audition classes because I've been there. I've been in your shoes.
Yeah.
I know how nerve-wracking it is. And how do you get through it? What is the process? How do you find joy in that? And which there aren't many teachers that have been there. And also no one is teaching it from a writer, producer, showrunner perspective.
Right.
Like, what am I looking for when you walk in, when I have a sitcom on TV? What do I want to see?
Yeah.
You do.
That's a class I need. Whether I ever act again. Being able to get through an
When I move
audition
down here,
class.
I'll teach. I'll alternate with Terry Ray, and we can teach that.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right, so at that point, you decided to shift away from acting and into writing.
Yes, but I didn't think I could be a writer because I never read as a kid. I was very proud of that. Like you'd come back from summer vacation, some kids, not you two, but maybe you. I read 20 books over the summer. It would be a big deal. You didn't read, did you?
A little bit, but nothing like that.
No. I didn't read one. I walked in. I didn't read a damn book.
Didn't crack a book?
I cracked at Archie's comic maybe, but there was no book reading. And proud of that. But then I felt like I couldn't be a writer because I wasn't educated in words. And I created finding my writing partner, James Berg, at NYU, who was a journalism major, which was all about words. So together, he brought that artistry, and then I brought acting. And so I had to teach him that the characters had to have arcs and a point of view. And so it just meshed, and we're still writing together today, which is crazy.
So your strengths and weaknesses kind of feed off of each other.
And over the years, we've kind of taken on each other's personalities. And when we go in and pitch, people, they don't always buy the pitch, but they're like, that's the best pitch I've ever seen.
That was a great performance.
Well, he literally starts a sentence, I'll finish it, and then vice versa. So it's this like ping pong game, and they're watching. It's like Challengers, the movie. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's quite extraordinary, and I feel so lucky to have him in my life. He has a place in Joshua Tree, actually a number of homes that he rents, and he has an artist residency program.
Oh, phenomenal.
Joshua Tree Highlands. So, during the hot summer months, they have people apply, artists from all over the world, and they come and they stay there, and it's a beautiful thing that he's given back to the community.
That is very cool.
Now, at some point, you were on stage performing with the Joffrey Ballet.
Yeah, I was studying at NYU. So all my dance teachers said, you have such natural ability, but you don't have any skills in that. But you get the beat.
I'd start crying if somebody said that to me.
No, I took that as, they said, you need to learn the fundamentals of dance, and that will be with ballet. I'm like, ugh, ballet, I'm not doing that. And then he was like, oh, but football players do ballet. I'm like, I don't care. And I was like, okay, so there's a, Joffrey Ballet had a connection with NYU. So I was like, all right, I'll try a class. It was so uplifting. I would sweat my ass off, but I'd walk home. My feet were not touching the ground when I went back to the dorm. It was just pure joy. Wow. It just was something about it. It was very freeing, but it gave you the fundamentals of form, and I like form. I was really good in algebra, horrible in geometry, but I like knowing you can do this, you can do that, you can't do that. And television is like that too. You have a box you have to write in. You can't, network television especially.
They're very formulaic in many ways.
Yes, you have 23 minutes, you can't say this, you can't do that. I kind of like that, so I know where the walls are, but I can push them a little bit.
Is it different? I mean, now because there are so many.
I mean, streaming and cable.
Streaming, and there are none of those boundaries. You can say anything you want these days.
It depends. Cable still has a lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
We did a big Lifetime cable Christmas movie starring Donna Mills, Morgan Fairchild, Nicolette Sheridan, Lonnie Anderson, and Linda Gray.
Oh, my gosh.
Just a few divas.
All of the hotties from my teenage years.
Yeah, you would not have been allowed on set. That would have been a bad thing.
I met Lonnie Anderson, and I behaved myself very well.
Oh, you did? Okay. That's very good. So which of those five, if you had to have one evening with, who would it be?
Nicolette Sheridan.
Oh.
Very close to the top of the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always had a thing for Linda Gray.
Linda Gray lives out here. We're trying to get her on the podcast.
Yeah.
Don't tell her
really
you have a thing
wonderful.
for her until after we finish.
Yeah, wait. I almost did that to Eve Plum, and that would not have gone
Really?
well. Yeah. In 5th grade, I wrote a school report, that I was going to move to Hollywood, marry Eve Plum, and become a Hollywood star. And she ended up walking into an audition for a sitcom we were, and my writing partner's like, do not bring up that report.
Tell her.
Whatever you do. And this was after we had written the Brady Bunch movies, and he said, don't bring that up either, because she was very against the whole Brady world at a certain point of her life. She wanted to kind of escape from it. I think they've all embraced it more. But I think at a certain point you wanted to kind of just have another life besides, Jan Brady. But come on, it's fucking Jan Brady. Sure, Jan.
That's right.
Yes. So that's the crazy thing. We wrote that line, Sure Jan, in the Brady Bunch movies, not knowing it would become a meme and T-shirts, and I have a coffee cup with it on it, and
Well, I also had a crush on Alice, so I was
all right, there's a problem.
I was
right
across
there.
the board.
Did you also want to be a butcher?
Yeah.
Didn't
Sam.
she date the butcher?
Yeah.
Sam
I
the
did.
butcher.
Sam
yeah.
the butcher.
Okay.
Yeah, eventually.
All right.
I know there's a lot there.
There's a lot to unpack.
Jesus.
Maybe
Maybe
you were
need
telling
another,
a story
you need
about
another drink, I think.
I
yeah.
do. You were telling the story about these Lonnie and Nicholas
Yeah.
shared.
Oh, so unfortunately, those Christmas movies you see have a formula. And we found that they did not really want to step out of that formula, but you don't hire those actresses and me and my writing partner and not have like a really campy, bitchy comedy.
Right.
And they were like, this is funny. They're jokes. I'm like, well, yeah, there's jokes.
Have you guys met us?
Yeah.
Like that's what we do.
Of course. And that's what people want with those women. You put those women in a room together, you want some table throwing, some food fights, you want,
And they were all comfortable with that.
they wanted that, yeah. But I found the network really wanted just a standard Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And so it still is some of that. As it becomes, more money involved, people get scared of letting creators create.
outside the
Right.
box.
Yeah, they
it's
like you to stay on.
It's a
draw
little,
within
it's
the
a
lines.
little more with streaming, but I always thought I think that's why networks have faded, because they just you hire someone you believe in, let them go, because no one knows what's going to be successful or not. I mean, with Golden Girls, nobody thought at that time a show about 4 older women in a house in Miami would be popular, and here we are now. Coming up this fall will be the 40th anniversary of Golden Girls.
40 years later.
That we're still talking about it. It's still vital. The storylines still are important.
It's so vital and so relevant. You see TikTok and Instagram clips.
I comment on them.
My kids are like, who would never, my kids are 19 and 16, but they know who the Golden Girls are.
These kids come up to me quoting lines. I'm like, I think I might have wrote that. I'm not sure. But I'll go online, because sometimes, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, as I'm sure you two do. But I'll go on TikTok, and I'll see they'll be arguing about, oh, that scene, Betty White ad-libbed a line and she cracked all the actors up. And I'm like, no, she did not. We wrote that. And this just shows how, and the people chime in, what do you know about it? And other people go like, he was there, that's him. And it's very interesting. But I think it's a testament to the actors that they made it so real that you think that they're cracking themselves
Well, and you
up.
touched on some pretty important topics in that show, too.
We did an episode about sexual harassment that unfortunately we're still dealing with, that Blanche had to deal with.
Yeah.
We dealt with Alzheimer's, even suicide. I didn't write that one, but that's what was so cool. But they told us in the writer's room, and I was there season 1, down the hall was the show Facts of Life. Remember, they had very special episodes.
Oh, yeah, very.
Blair had an eating disorder, or whoever it was. One of them did. To not make the show like that. That the shows had to seem very organic and storylines that would really happen to these women, but deal with them in a funny way, but in a real serious way. So it never felt like we were stopping our normal show to tell those stories. Where Facts of Life, I think, kind of did.
Right. You never forced a storyline. Whereas a very special episode is, right away, oh, we forced a storyline on this show.
And they would advertise it as a very special episode. But Golden Girls was every week was a very special episode.
Absolutely.
Was there any pushback from network censors or anything like that on anything that you tried to do?
No, and that was shocking. I think when you have a hit series, they lay off. In the beginning of a show, everyone's really, really nervous. But I think once Golden Girls hit, and it hit pretty quickly, and we were there at the table reads every Monday, they would read the ratings number because there were no computers back then. There was, we wrote like on typewriters.
I've heard of that.
IBM Selectrics, I believe. And
Electric 2 was a fine.
Oh,
it
it
was fine.
was.
You could erase or cover it up or something magical. So every table read on Monday morning, they would announce what the ratings were for the previous week, and it would go from like 25, and then 20, and then 15, and then all of a sudden, like, 2 and 1, and we're all in the room not believing, like, wow. And then I would occasionally go to West Hollywood on a Saturday night. And
Nobody does that.
I would never do that. And normally it'd be like crazy and bustling. Saturday nights when Golden Girls was on, dead silence on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Wow.
Everybody was in the bar watching the show. Like that, and I would just go by and occasionally get free drinks,
How did that come
Yeah.
to be? How did you end up working on that show?
We had just had our first staff job, and then we did a couple of freelance episodes. One was for a show called Fame,
Oh, yeah.
and our episode stars an unknown actress named Janet Jackson. And she
Saw her
actually,
at the
Whatever
Super
happened to
Bowl.
her?
I don't know what happened to
I wonder
her.
if
Or the
she-
whole family. Yeah,
We should do a
You
retrospective on
should. Maybe she'll hang out here.
I mean, she
at
come
a
and
little
do
bar.
the
Yeah.
podcast, and we
Yeah.
can find her.
We'll have
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake show up, and they can reenact the halftime.
Oh my God, that's a whole story. So the episode we wrote was that she got a bad review, and what do people do when you get bad reviews in any play? And her first music video was in that episode. So Debbie Allen directed it. Another, what happened to that person? And she took a song from Janet's first album, which was not a big success, and used that song and made a music video, which also played on the gay bars in West Hollywood, which I got to see. So that was crazy. So then this new show came out, and we were kind of the flavor of the month writers. So I guess they read a spec script that we wrote, and they said, come in and pitch episodes for Golden Girls. So you go in, again, they can't send you anything on a computer because there's no computers. You go in, you watch the pilot, and then you go home, you work out episode ideas, and you go back in and you pitch them in the room. And we came in, you have like 5 or 6, so we pitched no. We're looking at the paper. There's nothing left.
Running
Like,
out.
oh,
That's what we've got.
Yeah, this is what we got. So we're heading out the door, and I'm literally in the doorway, and something came over me, and I turned around, and I said, what if Rose's mother came to visit? And there was dead silence, and I thought they're, again, calling security. And they said, come in and sit down. And then what would happen? And then we're just vamping. And then we came up with the concept of that she treats her like a young girl, not like her mother. And
Was that something you had thought about before, or it just popped into your
I
mind?
think
at
it must
that
have
moment?
come up just in discussion,
Yeah.
and then dealing with like my own mother and my own grandmother and all, you're always taking pieces of real life, which is interesting. So I may be taking some of this.
Trying to disguise them as best you can so that
So you can't get sued.
That's right.
Couple of inept
No, I think-
podcasters.
But you do that in acting. You take, as you know, you take pieces of your own life. And I just find the older I get, I always did it. My mother would always say, that's me. And I would just say, yeah, even if it wasn't. I just want to make her feel good. So we got a freelance episode, and they really liked the first draft, and they were like, which is really hard for outside writers to be able to hear the language of characters that have already existed. That's a different art
because the
form.
writer's room already exists.
Yeah, but we weren't in there.
Right.
So they were like, how do these guys know? It's
Yeah.
because I think my acting background, I was taught acting, and I'll give this to you, acting is, you've heard it, is reacting. It's listening. It's just listening to the other person. So we were always listening and reacting and watching other people and how they phrase things, or how do people react, or what are their hands like this, or what do they nervously do with the pen. And so I think that just made us more, and also I think being gay and being outsiders, we were just out there watching kind of the rest of the world and pretending to be in the closet or whatever that was. So I think this gave us an extra bit of sensitivity and point of view.
You said pretending to be in the closet. Had you not come out at that point?
We were in the closet on Golden Girls, which everyone is shocked to hear. And Estelle Getty was the first one that she had a good gaydar, because we met her on set, and I think the very first day she like calls us over. She goes, "Psst, come here," and she starts walking behind the set, and we're like, I don't just follow her. I don't know what you just do. And she's 3'2", and she says, "You're one of us." I'm like, I thought she meant Jewish, but she meant gay. She was not gay, but she was a real ally, like you are, on the road there, 3 days away. And And she said, "Your secret's safe with me." And then back in those days, you could not be out and be on a writing staff. It just wasn't done because you'd be. And now it seems so silly and crazy. Like, what were they going to do? But I think it was such an old boys network in the writers' room. Like, we remember reading about Gary Marshall and his writers' room for like Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and they would take breaks and play basketball. And I said, I can't play basketball. I can't be a writer.
But you watched basketball. You could talk about it.
I could talk about it.
Talk
But what happens when they threw the ball to me? Then what? I would probably I thought it was dodgeball or something. It hit me in the face. I was actually good in dodgeball. I don't know why. I like
You did not want to get hit in the face.
So I caught it, look, with my little teeny scrawny body, and I was red there for probably 2 months, but I
But
caught
you sent
it.
somebody onto the sideline.
God damn
there
it!
you go.
Yeah.
All right, at this point, we have to take a quick break to hear from our presenting sponsor, the McCallum Theater, who makes sure that we get to have all of these big conversations right here at this little bar. We'll be right back.
The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now. The world's top artists, from jazz, pop, classical, and comedy to the best of Broadway. Only at the Valley's favorite place for great entertainment. Tickets are on sale now at the McCallum Theater box office, by phone, or online at mccallumtheater.org. Tickets sell quickly, so order yours today. A new, exciting season only at the McCallum. The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now.
Once again, our thanks to the McCallum Theater, and you can log on to mccallumtheater.org. Make sure that you have, they add shows all the time. And I know you were just looking through the catalog. There were a bunch of things you saw that you wanted. We need to go hang out there.
I'm ready for
Invite me? Maybe?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hang out there a lot. I've been asked not to.
Are
Maybe I need
you
to go
loitering?
in. Yeah, I probably need to go in at some
I thought they
point.
just asked you to put your pants back on. I thought you can stay.
A couple people did, not everybody.
We are here with Stan Zimmerman talking about. So you just talked about Estelle Getty and what a gem she was to pull you aside like that. Talk about tell us some stories about the rest of the cast. They're so iconic, and I think everybody loves I love a B. Arthur story.
She scared the shit out of us.
I mean, what was she like at the table?
If you watch, quiet. She was a very imposing character. I mean, it was friggin' Maude sitting there.
Maude.
That's what I saw. You know, I saw the pantsuit. I mean, to me, she was just like 8 feet tall, and she wasn't really. But I felt some weirdness, and I didn't know what it was till years later. Supposedly, she took a look at the young writers, meaning us, and was like, no, who are they? They should not, because she was used to like Norman Lear and that whole group. She wanted some old Jewish writers, and then she got these young pipsqueaks.
You can't be an old Jewish writer until you start as a young Jewish writer.
Exactly. But she was very concerned, and then she read the script and was like, oh, you're fine. Just do what you're going to do. But I didn't know that that's what her attitude was at the time. But again, when you're starting a show, you don't know where it's going. And then she quickly saw that we had a handle on her character and really respected every single actor there. And they were goddesses to us. So it's funny when I meet writers from other seasons later, much later, they joke about, oh, we got to, put some dirty words in their mouth. I'm like, that's not where our heads were at that time. We were very much just honoring their legacy and super excited to be there, and while this whole phenomenon was starting to happen.
Well, it's funny you say that about the dirty words, because you look at Betty White, who, she went on to do a number of those roasts, and it became kind of the funny thing for Betty White
she was great doing
to drop an F-bomb.
And she was so funny and so quick-witted. I mean, she, they say when TV turned on, there was Betty White, and she had one of the first television shows in the history of television. But she was always cracking jokes in between takes, and she just had this mind. That was
up until her last days. Yeah.
I remember that day on New Year's Eve. Every New Year's Eve, I sit down and I kind of journal what my year was, and then all of a sudden, I just felt this. My phone was like, what the hell's happening? I was like, all right, I'll answer it. And everyone was texting me saying Betty White had passed, and she was very, very close to being 100 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone had.
Within weeks
of it.
Yeah.
And people they'd built all the magazines.
Oh, that was, yeah.
It was going to be a big deal, and she didn't make it. there was so much sadness I felt. And then I started getting calls from CNN and all these, local TV stations all over the world, really. And then, would you come on and talk about her? And my take was that instead of feeling sad, it was New Year's Eve. I think she wanted us to raise a glass to her and toast to all the laughs that she brought us and not be sad about it. And I think that kind of resonated with people. And so that kind of, that's how I spent my New Year's Day
So
doing.
can you look back on it now and there's a recognition of some of the iconic stages that you were part of, the Golden Girls and the Gilmore Girls?
Roseanne.
Roseanne.
I mean,
Well, as a matter of fact, you wrote a
What?
pretty...
yeah, so Lesbian Kiss episode.
Yes.
We turned down season 1 of Roseanne. But by the time we got there, there was so much controversy, and she'd gone through and fired many, 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 many writers. So I just really respected the stories she wanted to tell about middle-class Americans.
I remember seeing her on her first appearance on The Tonight Show.
I did too.
And I thought she was remarkable.
Remarkable. So the next morning, I called our agent and said, "You've got to get us a meeting with this Roseanne person. I think there's a sitcom in there." And he looked her up and he said, "No one in America is going to buy a show with a fat female lead." That was the mentality of television back then.
Yep.
She proved them wrong. So it's funny, she now has a podcast, which should I go on it? I'm so curious to sit down with her. I have so many questions.
I think you kind of have to at this point.
I at first was afraid, like, is she going to, bite my head off? And I was like, no, I'm strong. I can handle her. So she posted on Instagram someone else's post that had a video of her from the original show, and they had written, "What happened to that old Roseanne? She seemed to care about everybody." So I type in, that's what people keep asking me, what happened to that woman? And I did like an emoji, a little Jewish emoji.
Uh-huh.
She writes in, "I haven't changed, they have. Ask them."
Wow.
And I'm like, holy fuck, is that really her? Is that someone who does her social media? I'm like, so I was trying to engage with her. So I said, "I don't know if you remember me," and then she never responded.
Let's talk about that episode, because that was a big deal.
Yeah, so we wanted to, and we learned from Rue McClanahan, who right at the very beginning said, "Challenge my character. Challenge us." And so we took that to every job we did. So when we got to Roseanne, she was known to be liberal and very embracing of everybody in her family. In real life, she had a lesbian sister. So we thought, how could we challenge that character to what her beliefs are? What if she went to a gay bar with those characters and got kissed by a woman? And that's how that came about. Not knowing that the network would say, "You can't write this episode. We're not paying them to write the episode." I'm like, well, it's our show. We're doing it. They're going to write the episode. Then ABC said, "Well, you're not filming it." And she says, "Well, we're filming it."
And she had
the power then
at
because
that
it was a
point.
hit show.
It was, yeah. It was,
And then her and Tom Arnold were still together. It was the last year they were still married. And they said, "If you don't film this and air this, we will buy it back, buy time on HBO, and put it on there."
Wow.
So that took commitment. So I had this mixed emotions about her.
and that was a legit threat for the folks at ABC.
Yeah, I mean, what would that look like? So we would be at work all day writing the episode. I would go home at night and watch them on the 11 o'clock news talking about my episode. Like,
episode
how is
that
that news? And then when it aired, we threw a huge benefit at, which was then Studio One in West Hollywood. CNN came, all this news, and nobody knew if it was actually going to air. And then it came on in this room, like with 200, 300 people just erupted because they'd never seen two women kissing on television before.
And did it open up anything after that in television?
Well,
or-
it was huge ratings, and the world didn't explode.
Right.
And so we went on with the world, and it was like, oh, okay, we can do this. We didn't lose any sponsors. And I feel really lucky to be a part of that history. I think there would not have been an Ellen had there not. Everything is baby steps. Ellen, Will and Grace.
You know, when you look at doing that kind, when you write so well for a character, and you tell a story about this character that you know, people who love that character will go along with
her journey.
And and they'll totally accept it. It's like
even if they're shocked by it,
Yeah.
they'll understand where she's coming from, and that's what we were telling. And I think that's what Roseanne and even the Connors still do that. They talk about the point of view, and I grew up in middle American suburb of Detroit, what that's like, and the struggles. You hadn't seen that really since the years of Norman Lear, which he was very influential in my life. When I would watch the shows as a kid, I wanted to do that. And I luckily got to tell him that. He was getting really old. I'm like, I'm never going to meet him. And then someone said, oh, there's a screening of a movie he produced. Do you want to go to it? I was already at the theater by the time they didn't even have to hang up. And there I was talking to him about B. Arthur and Maude and all that.
I mean,
like,
Maude and All in the Family.
Yes. The Jeffersons
just kind of broke the mold of television. I mean, and you couldn't do it today. So I don't think those shows could be put on network television, which is remarkable to me because it was such incredibly good television.
They were complicated, and my point of view, when the whole Roseanne thing came out and she was fired, and I went on CNN and talked about it, I think it's important to have those messy conversations, and we just everyone's in their corners. We just have to get in there and respect each other, and then we're not keep punting these conversations about racism and homophobia and sexism.
And have you noticed, I mean, that was 50 years ago.
All right, no numbers. This isn't 50 years ago.
Well, All in the Family.
All in the Family was, yes.
All in the Family
was.
was.
The 70s, but as you just said, you probably couldn't do those shows.
No, we
now
think
on the
we've
network.
progressed, but you couldn't put all in the. I just don't see.
Talking about those things.
I think
Jeffersons.
people would be too scared, and people would be, we're overly offended about everything.
But like Meathead and Gloria, they would fight with him about those issues.
Of course, there was massive pushback.
But that was great to see that discussion in a family. At the end of the day, they still sat down together and had dinner, and you could fight and still, love each other.
And it was the highest rated show in TV for a long time. Yeah. So clearly at that point, America was ready for it.
Yeah, so maybe America isn't ready right now. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, or people are just scared. But that's why I'm focusing on theater and doing what I want to do.
And so you're traveling around the country with your play.
Yes.
And you're doing that you just told me you're doing that with students now. You just had
I've done it with famous people, Virginia Madsen and Vanessa Williams and Hill Harper and Blair Underwood. And then I've also been directing other original plays around the country and forming relationships with different theaters. And then on a book tour a year ago, I had my premiere party in Palm Springs for my book, The Girls from Golden to Gilmore. And it's stories about all the wonderful women I've worked with and Roseanne. And so that's on the back cover. I'm not sure how she would react on her podcast if she saw that, but it would be a lively discussion, I'm sure. So I've been traveling around doing different events, at different libraries, and then also there's been a Gilmore Girls cruise I was on, and a Golden Girls cruise. Been doing a bunch of those, and fan festivals, and it's really fun as a writer to get to meet fans of shows, because actors do all the time. People run up to them because they know their face.
Right, yeah,
Nobody knows who I am, but I go to these fan festivals, and for 3 days, I'm a superstar, and then I go back and nobody gives a shit who I am. So,
are you okay with that?
No,
not
at all. Yes, but this podcast, I feel, is going to.
This will turn.
I think
everything.
this is going to be it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Roseanne, actually, the only one that listens.
Yes,
so
I hope.
You'll be hearing from her soon about that. You've been around the world.
Yes, I'm old. Okay, so that's a way of saying it.
No.
Okay.
Well,
I'm older.
The one guy at the table who should not be throwing that stone.
Yeah, I'm older, and I've not been. But you were in Moscow.
Yes, so I got asked by Sony to help them develop a Russian Roseanne show. And I was like, please, dear God, let me get a job so I don't have to go do that. I was scared. I'd heard just very scary things about being there.
And when was this?
2015,
okay.
So the embargoes and all that was happening. And nothing came up. And I was like, oh, fine, I'll go. I had the best time. I did 2 months in the spring and 2 in the fall. And was just eye-opening to hear their perspective of the world. I would be nervous if I was out like at a bar and that my coworkers would start talking about Putin, and I'm like, shh, quiet, I want to live. Like, don't say anything. But I was very nervous because at that point Putin had a law that anything mention of gay in any entertainment was considered illegal.
Well,
So
there were no homosexuals in Russia, right?
I dated a few, but anyway, I hope they were.
Well, they are now.
Yes, there you go.
And if not,
I had no power.
congratulations.
Thank you.
You gave an experience.
It's a speed bump as far as I'm concerned. So, if you drive fast over it, it's like nothing, right? I go faster. I don't slow down speed bumps. Anyway, yeah, so I went there, and I thought, so I had learned that, I don't know if you know this, but Roseanne was discovered because she's doing stand-up comedy all over, where was it, Utah or somewhere? Or,
yeah, she's a
somewhere up there.
housewife.
Yeah, she's a housewife, a barmaid, and made everybody laugh, and then they talked to her doing stand-up. So I said to them, I will go to every stand-up comedy club in Moscow and Russia. We'll find a Russian Roseanne. They're like, we don't have those clubs here. Maybe they should. Isn't that weird that they don't have them? You would think vodka
there would
and
need
humor.
to be humor.
There is humor
oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah, there is humor there.
The mention of the gulag and people laugh.
Yeah, it's so
Oh.
funny.
The ones that aren't in it.
That Siberia thing.
Yeah.
It's a little cold, but you wear fur. Anyway, it was very interesting. So I had to hire a director who did not speak English. So I had a translator, I had a driver. My apartment was, I could see Red Square from my balcony. I'm a runner, so I'd go running every morning through Red Square. It was just a crazy experience.
Wow.
It was hard to get actors to be on a TV show. Like here, actors love television. There, I went to the Moscow Art Theater to see a production of Streetcar Named Desire in Russian. I know the play.
Oh, in the original Russian.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, I'll at least know kind of where the story is.
Yeah.
And I saw a wonderful woman who would make a great Laurie Metcalf character. She's like, I'm not coming in. I'm like, it's a TV show. No, I like theater. I'm just going to do theater in the provinces. It's just it was a different mentality.
Was there anything that you had to stay away from?
I did ask the gay question, and they said, well, Roseanne didn't really deal with any gay issues till years later, so you're just going to be dealing with the first year or two of episodes. But I did say, so what happens if there is an overthrow of the government, or anything could happen? And I said, well, we did just hire a security team that will whisk you away like a Tom Cruise movie, I guess, like from the roof of my...
Oh, you had an extraction team just for you?
Yes, they did. Not for me, for the people that were there doing what I was doing.
No, there was one guy who was
just for me,
Get Stan out.
Get that one out.
Stan out.
So you just go over there going, okay, and I get in my apartment, and I'm looking through my apartment, and there's a bookshelf, and above it there was like a hole in the wall at the top. And I go, they're friggin' watching me. So I move a box over, like that's going to stop them. But you had to realize anything you typed on your computer, someone is there watching.
Yeah.
And
Before you headed over, were you told, do this, don't do that, don't say this?
No, I did watch Phil Rosenthal, who created Everett Les Raymond.
Yeah.
He made a documentary about his time going over there and making his show into a sitcom. It's still running there.
Wow.
So what you do is you take the scripts that we all wrote on those shows, you translate them, and then you have to adapt them to their culture.
Everybody loves Ivan.
It was called The Veronins.
Everybody loved
So we taught Russians how to write sitcoms, so we kind of taught our way out of a job, so there's no longer jobs there. And I also helped them develop a Russian Mary Tyler Moore show while I was there. And I did get a woman hired to write it, because they were like, women aren't funny. I'm like, that is crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It's not as upbeat as our marriage, because she says we're not going to make it after
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
It's a very...
Well, they couldn't understand in the pilot, she turns down marriage proposal. So everyone in the room were like, but she's 30 years old. She'll never get asked again. That's the end of her life. Like, she should take that. And I'm like, and I said, but she's throwing her hat in the air and she's going to make it on her own. Well, they didn't understand any of that. So. Anyway.
Are
lots of
sitcoms
cultural-
a big part of Russian television?
Is what?
Are sitcoms a big part of Russian
They're
television?
getting to be, yes.
Are they funny?
Yes, they're funny. Yeah, some of them are broader. So Phil Rosenthal had that issue because Raymond was very much middle America, and they
and very, I mean, still like middle America and very Italian.
Yeah,
like,
but real. And they kept saying the women should have like jewelry and like fur coats, and they're like, no, it's just real people. That's
June
what
Cleaver.
Yeah, it was about just real middle Americans in their world, and. Anyway, it's a worthwhile documentary. I would go back in a flash. I just had a great time. I still have friends there. Whenever there's a major crisis, I'll be like, are you alive? What country are you in? I had some people, when the whole Ukraine thing happened, they got out. So imagine if you had to leave this country without your credit cards are turned off, your phone. What would you do? They had to go to the next plane out.
Wow.
And what? Start over?
Have you written that?
Oh my God, no, that's too intense. But they should write it. But yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
I've
never even had to think about that. Luckily.
Yeah, luckily. You never know where the world is going. But
Stan, thank you. Oh wait.
Oh, we're going.
We're talking a little bit about what's coming up for you here in the area. First of all, moving here full time. That's got to be very soon. Yeah.
So that's around the corner.
You get pitched on that every time you come to town. 'Cause I know I keep telling you.
I know. Well, get me with a realtor. No, I have a realtor here. But what part of town would I live in? Do you think? I think I want to live in Palm Springs proper.
Probably. I mean, I think.
I love mid-century. My home in LA is mid-century, so I mean, this is the land of it.
You can find there are some great mid-century gyms outside of Palm Springs, but you really need to be in Palm Springs.
Yeah, one floor because it's going to get to be that point.
No one wants to fall down the stairs.
No, we don't.
Floor.
No, I did that once 15 years ago.
Fell down the stairs?
I was reading The Hollywood Reporter at the time. I missed a step and I cracked some bones in a foot and had to. Yeah, that was not.
That's bad.
So your ballet
career
bad. Was over.
I thought I was doing a jeté, and I landed on the side. I heard a crack and a pain that I've never felt. It was during Obamacare that time, so it was a while ago. But I had to learn how to walk again. And I learned because I was like, all right, what day am I getting, can I walk? When can I run? When can I swim? And they're like, you'll walk when you walk. You'll swim when you swim.
Wow. But you're back to running now, so obviously full recovery.
But I think that's, for people in healing, that's a big concept of not having a specific date that your body will do. And
when I had my hip replaced, I kept saying, push it off a little bit.
You did?
They're like, oh, you could walk. You could. Like, oh, I'm kind of enjoying the couch.
You did?
They're like, you should probably go for a run. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I didn't run before I broke my hip. I'm not doing it now.
No. And now look at you.
Hey, listen, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
I'm not leaving. I'm just going to have 3 more drinks. And
perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not
leaving. It's going to be recording.
We just have to stop recording.
I'll just sit in the corner and talk to myself.
Stan Zimmerman, and tell people the title of your book so they can get it.
The Girls from Golden to Gilmore.
The Girls from Golden to Gilmore. Check it out. Also, Randy, thank you. Great job today.
Thank you for inviting me again.
It was not. You didn't even nod off once.
No. Well,
I was kicking him under the table.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. And John McMullen, our producer. And once again, our thanks to Skip Page and his entire team here at Little Bar and the McCallum Theater. Please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode of Big Conversations. Little Bar, thanks for listening. I'm Patrick Evans.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Big Conversations, Little Bar. Recorded on location at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, and presented by the McCallum Theater. Online at McCallumTheater.org. This program is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. All episodes are available from BigConversationsLittleBar.com and most major podcast portals.
Meet your neighbors, fascinating and grand. Each conversation, a wave on the sand. Raise your glass and join the ride, where stories and dreams fully collide. At Big Conversations Little Bar, brought to you by McCallum, our guiding star. From movie, stage, and TV's delight, join us for a captivating morning, noon, or night. So gather round at Skip's Little Bar, where stories travel from near and far. Big conversations where they unfold, with Patrick Rick and Randy, tales retold.